"You are so smart," words meant entirely as praise, said to a child over and over, years before anyone realized what they were actually building. That same child, now an adult, consistently chooses the familiar task over the exciting opportunity, the safe project over the genuinely ambitious one, and everyone around them assumes this reflects a genuine lack of ambition. Real research suggests something considerably different and considerably more precise. This was never laziness. Carl Jung's understanding of a persona built entirely around a fixed, unchangeable identity offers a precise explanation for why being called smart, of all things, can quietly produce an adult who actively avoids the exact challenges most likely to reveal genuine valuable growth. Being praised specifically for being smart rather than for the actual effort a child put into working hard teaches a genuinely specific and genuinely dangerous lesson. Intelligence gets framed as an identity, a fixed, inherent quality you simply are, rather than a capacity you actively build through real, ongoing effort. This means any genuine failure does not register as ordinary, expected difficulty along the way. It registers as a direct threat to the entire identity, proof that the smart child was perhaps never actually as smart as everyone always insisted. Jung's understanding adds a genuinely useful, deeper layer to why this specific pattern produces such persistent adult avoidance. He believed a persona built around a single fixed identity becomes genuinely fragile in exactly the areas that identity claims to cover, since any real, honest test threatens to expose the actual gap between the persona's claimed effortless competence and the person's genuine, ordinary human limitations. A person whose entire early identity was built around simply being smart cannot actually afford genuine failure in an area related to intelligence, since failing there does not simply mean one specific attempt went poorly. It means confronting the possibility that the entire foundational identity was inaccurate all along. This explains why this specific adult chooses familiar, already mastered tasks over genuinely exciting, ambitious ones, not from any actual lack of desire or capability, but from a genuine deep fear that real effort, followed by real failure, would prove something considered permanently unfixable about who they actually are. Staying inside familiar territory protects the fragile foundational identity from ever actually being tested, while a genuinely new, considerable challenge risks exposing precisely the vulnerability this entire persona was originally built to conceal. Here is what makes this understanding genuinely important, rather than simply an explanation for underachievement. This same pattern often produces genuine, considerable talent that never actually gets fully developed, since genuine mastery in any domain requires tolerating real, repeated failure along the way, and a persona this fragile around its own claimed competence cannot actually tolerate the specific necessary failures genuine growth requires. Here is what actually helps in working with this pattern directly. It helps to notice honestly the next time you choose the familiar, safe option over a genuinely exciting, ambitious one, what specific fear is actually driving that choice. Since naming this fear directly, that failing would prove something permanent and unfixable, transforms a vague, automatic avoidance into something you can actually examine and gradually challenge. There is a second thing worth practicing directly. It helps to deliberately, consciously reframe your own relationship to effort and failure, actively praising your own genuine attempts and genuine process, rather than only the specific successful outcome. Since this small repeated shift gradually rebuilds a considerably more flexible, more resilient identity, one where failure becomes genuine, useful information, rather than a permanent verdict on your entire foundation worth. There is a third, genuinely important piece worth understanding. This work does not require abandoning genuine intelligence or genuine capability, which remain entirely real. It requires simply separating your actual ongoing identity from any single outcome, building a considerably more accurate, more resilient sense of self that can genuinely survive real, ordinary failure without collapsing entirely. If you recognize this specific pattern of avoiding genuine challenges you are actually capable of pursuing, hear this clearly. This was never laziness or a genuine lack of ambition. According to both real research and Jung's understanding, it very often reflects a persona built around a fragile, fixed identity, formed years before you had any genuine say in the matter. And this deserves honest, patient examination rather than continued, automatic retreat. Think honestly about the last genuinely exciting challenge you avoided in favor of something considerably safer and more familiar. And consider what specific fear about your own identity that particular avoidance was actually protecting. Right below the single word for what you suspect failing at that challenge would have proven about you if you actually let yourself believe it. Naming it honestly and choosing one small, genuinely uncertain challenge to attempt despite this fear is the real and practical way you begin building an identity flexible enough to survive real, ordinary failure without collapsing entirely. There is a final piece worth naming, since it offers real practical hope beyond simply diagnosing an old pattern. Many genuinely talented adults who recognize this exact pattern in themselves go on to develop real, considerable mastery. Once they finally give themselves permission to fail publicly and repeatedly, discovering, often to their own genuine surprise, that the specific catastrophe their old identity always predicted simply never actually arrives. There is a second piece worth naming, since it offers useful guidance for anyone raising children now. This same research suggests a genuinely simple, practical shift, praising a child's specific effort, strategy, and process, rather than praising their fixed, inherent intelligence, tends to produce considerably more resilient adults, ones genuinely capable of tolerating the ordinary failure real ambitious growth actually requires. Because avoiding genuine challenges you are actually capable of pursuing was never, according to both real research and Carl Jung's understanding, evidence of laziness or a lack of ambition. It very often reflected a fragile persona built around a fixed, unchangeable identity. And understanding this honestly was always the real, practical first step toward finally building the kind of resilient self that genuine growth actually requires.